Is it possible there's a guaranteed money back on the table? I mean, guaranteed that you're going to accelerate your leadership success if you do one thing. I believe it's true, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the Lead Everyday Show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And Mark, the money back guarantee is for this concept that we have both embraced for you for longer than me, but for the last 15 years, I've been part of a leadership group with a group of guys, and I think every leader could benefit from being a part of a leadership development group. That's what I'll call it. And so I want us to share a little bit of the story of that today, and maybe give some practical ways to do this if somebody's interested in being a part of a group like that. And so let's go down that road. I don't think we've ever talked about it. We've done, I was looking back, I think we've done now over together, I'm not sure how many, but the last 5 years, I think I've done over 1,000 podcasts, and we've had 500,000 downloads, and I don't think we've ever talked about this. So this feels like we need to have a conversation about our leadership development group.
Yeah, we've referenced it in passing, but we've never really talked about how to do this. And so I'm excited about this episode, and I think I'll kick us off with a little bit of backstory. And I should have checked, but I think it's been 28 years now that our group has been meeting, and we meet twice a month. And
let me stop you there. I mean, there are people who are like, 28 years. Are you serious? I mean, like, that's pretty amazing. So
twice a month,
you, man, for 28 years, I've been admitted for 15, but like, I can't. Yeah, this is great.
It's a big topic, and so here's how it happened. I had a couple of guys approach me, again, almost 30 years ago, and they said, "Hey, we want to start a group." And I said, "You want to start a group?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "What kind of group?" And they said, "We want to study leadership." And so I can't take credit for the idea, but these two guys, Bo and Jim, came to see me, and I said, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "So why are you talking to me?" And they said, "We want you to lead our group." And I said, "Well," I might facilitate, but man, there's so much I need to learn. Maybe this would be fun. And we ended up recruiting people, and we got input on who were the right guys to join the group. And we ended up with 10 men. And let me tell you just a little bit about the logistics, because some of you may be wondering. We do meet twice a month, and it's usually 2 to 3 hours, no less than 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. And for the first 20 plus years, we met in homes, and we rotated homes, and whoever is hosting the group that night would prepare a meal for us or bring something in. They've never gotten over the night that I brought Taco Bell, and they just couldn't believe it. But I do like Taco Bell, so I stand by my decision. So sometimes there's a home cooked meal. Sometimes folks will bring in fast food, and we'll tell you more during this episode.
Let me interrupt again. We did have somebody fly in some crab cakes from up in Baltimore. It's not always Taco Bell. I mean,
that's what made the Taco Bell look so bad. It's somebody else
exactly
in crab cakes. Yes, fresh from Maryland or wherever.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we've been doing this, and we study leadership, and we try to get better. Now, I mentioned we've been meeting in homes for probably 20 years. Maybe it was 25 years. But when COVID hit, we started going to a central location, to someone's office. And most of the time now, not every meeting, but we're back in that common office space. It's good geographically for the guys to come together. And we offer, as we did during COVID, a virtual option, which we're still doing, because one of our members now is in a new job, and he travels extensively. So we've offered him the option of coming in. And so we're a little bit of a hybrid group in that regard. But for the vast majority of the last quarter of a century, we've been in a room together, studying leadership.
Yeah. I'm going to have to admit here, I'm the rookie of the group. I've only been here 15 years. You guys have been going at it for 28 years, I guess. I still get a hard time. I get treated like the rookie too. So it's good, man. It's been so good. Mark,
let me jump in and say something. And while we're doing this episode, I don't know, you and I haven't talked about this, but one reason I wanted to do this topic is there's been a lot of interest in our group. Now, not global interest because people don't know about it. Now they do, but just in our circles and the people that we hang out with, we'll mention it from time to time. And there has been so much interest. A few years back, we decided that we would host an event to tell people about our group. Now, I don't know how that sounds to you, but we kept saying, no, you can't join our group. You can't join our group because that's what people wanted to know because it's a closed group. You know, you can't do with 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 in a room what you can do with 10 in a room. And so we didn't advertise it. We just started telling our friends that had interest in our group, hey, we're going to have a night and you can come and we'll kind of unpack for you what we do, why we do it, how we do it, really the content
that we're going to share today.
that we're sharing today, but we did an event for that and we had over 100 guys show up.
Yeah.
And so that just reminded me that there are a lot of people who are interested in learning and growing in their leadership. And there are a lot of men in the world specifically that don't have the type of community and the type of relationships that you can build when you go deep on a topic, maybe for years. And so all of those things kind of collided in my head and my heart. And I said, we need to do an episode on this.
That's good. I was going to tell that as well. I mean, it's like all these people want to come and I loved it when we did the event. And by the way, you know this, there are half a dozen or so groups that started out of that night, and that's been a few years ago. They're still going. And I mean, so there's a bunch of people. So anybody listening today, it doesn't matter where you live in the world, if you will take some of the stuff we're going to describe over the next few minutes and really go after this, you could have, who knows, 20, 28 years from now, you may have a group of guys that have been, or men or women that have been meeting together for a long time. And if you benefit as much as we have, we'll be happy that we talked about this today. So, okay, Mark, let's start with, if we're going to give some, what we'll call our tips here, these will be our pro tips, and we'll put these in a PDF and put them in the show notes. So you know, if you're driving, you don't have to pull over and take notes, but we'll describe some of this stuff, and what we don't get to will be in the PDF. I hope you'll download that. But Mark, start us off. Where to start here when you're thinking about starting a group?
Yeah, I think you've got to decide what is the focus of the group. Now we're representing to you that we're suggesting you consider a group focused on leadership development. And the reason I call that out is there are all kinds of groups in the world. There are social groups, there are book clubs that study the classics, and there are faith-based groups, and all groups are good. I mean, life is better when you do it with others. But I think you need to declare, if you're going to consider what we're talking about, that this is unashamedly dedicated and focused on leadership.
Yeah.
And you really need to have that agreement, because that sets you up for the first pro tip, which is to select your group members carefully. And if you don't have real conviction that you're going to study leadership, you don't know who you're trying to recruit. You don't know who you're trying to enroll, because you need to be very, very clear with the folks that you're inviting to join your group. It's going to be about leadership. Now, a little sidebar, the reason I think that might matter more to me is in the beginning, this group, many of the members were associated and affiliated with a particular church. And certainly these don't have to be faith-based groups at all. That's what we're saying. This is a group about leadership. But we had to be clear, this is not a Bible study. Now, we may bring a Christian worldview to the conversation because that's our worldview, but we're studying leadership. And so we wanted to remove any ambiguity as we began to recruit folks. And Randy, you may want to tell them the story about how you got recruited into the group. Maybe they'd like to hear that.
Say it again about how you got recruited
into the group.
Yeah, it was interesting. You guys, I say you guys, a guy in the group now, but a friend of yours called me up. He was a friend of mine. He called me up and he said, hey, I want to have lunch with you, and Mark Miller wants to come. And I knew who you were. In fact, you'll remember this probably. I was leading in an organization, and you had actually spoken for me one night in that organization when I couldn't be there. And so we had kind of crossed paths, but not really. And anyway, you guys you guys asked me if I would be interested in joining your group. And I found out that you had somebody drop out, which I can't understand why anybody would have ever dropped out of this group, but they did. And thankfully they did. And so, you guys had 9, I think, for a year or so. And invited me to be a part of it. And so I was actually very interested in trying to get better as a leader. And I was carrying a pretty heavy load in an organization I was in, and I really didn't have a place or an outlet outside of that. And so that, to me, that's an important part here, the diversity of the group, the different organizations, different people. I'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, that's how I got invited in, and I jumped at the chance, and it's been really, as I said, it's been great through the years for sure.
And you've got to decide what kind of, what the makeup of the group is. Our bias has shifted a couple times over the years. I mean, we all want to grow our leadership. We all want to add more value, have greater impact in the world, steward the talents and gifts that have been entrusted to us. I mean, we were like-minded, but when it came down to selecting men and women to be in the group, where we began the conversation was, who are men and women that we think have tremendous upside potential? Now, think of it in an organizational context. You might call those high potentials or hypos. It's like we see something in these people, and maybe they're in a role where they could expand their influence. Maybe they don't understand some of the talents and gifts that have been entrusted to them. And so we literally started with people that we thought had a huge upside. Later, we shifted and said, we want to specifically bring in the next generation of leaders. And so as we had a member or two move away, we actually had one member pass away.
Yeah.
So we brought in a couple of young leaders, and it didn't always work. I'm figuring out how to say this. One of them just decided he really didn't want to be a leader. It's like, okay, then this is probably not a group for you, and that's fine. And we tried. And then it's interesting, Randy, we made a shift. You've heard me talk about this before. We said, okay, we're now almost 15 years into this thing. We've got an opening. And we said, rather than think about potential or people with upside potential, rather than thinking about generational young people, again, none of these are bad ideas. We said, what if we just find a really gifted senior leader that can help make all of us better the moment he shows up? And so that was a shift. And we found Randy, and he joined us, and we've been better for it ever since. So I share that story to say, you get to decide. If you're building this group, you can put whoever you want in the room, assuming you can recruit them. But think about it carefully, because the group will be very different if you've got 8 or 10, 20 somethings that don't actually know how to lead versus a room full of senior leaders, or a mix. And Randy mentioned different industries, different disciplines. I mean, we've got a guy who works international. We've got another guy in finance. We've got another guy in construction. We've got another guy in education. I mean, you just go through got another guy in sales.
We have a nonprofit leader. I mean, it's a pretty diverse mix.
I think it's part of the magic. Now, it doesn't mean you've got to do it that way, but this first tip is to think about it.
Yeah.
And the common denominator that needs to be folks that say they want to learn and grow. They want to be a better leader. And from there, you can just tinker with it over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad I slipped through the cracks there and got in. So that's good. Okay. The second thing, I'll give another tip here. I think to keep the group small. I mean, to me, Mark, we mentioned it a little bit earlier when we had the event and 100 people showed up, but there literally have been hundreds of people probably through the years who have said, hey, how do we get to be a part of your group? And I think there's a size that is the right size. You'll have to decide if you're going to start one of these, what that is. You can start at one point and end up somewhere else. But I would say, I think somewhere maybe between 5 and 10. If I was going to start one now, I would want between 5 and 10 people. I'd say 5 and 10. I think if you get less than 5, if 1 or 2, you may have some people that are traveling or somebody that can't be there occasionally. And if you have only 5, your dynamic all of a sudden turns into there's only 3 of us can be there tonight. That makes it really hard for us. One of the things we did outline early on, or everybody told me when I first came, was you have to be here every week. We want you to prioritize this. And obviously travel does happen and life, happens for everybody in the group, but we really try to have everybody there. I mean, our dates are, are put on the calendar a year in advance. And so we know what Monday we meet every other Monday night. We know what those nights are going to be. We even know when the Christmas party is going to be. Mark, I hope you remember when that is. I think it's at your house again this year. So don't forget the Christmas party coming up. But those dates are expected. You're going to be here if you're going to be a part of this. This is not an optional thing. We really kind of have almost a charter like mindset to. We do have a charter, and so there's that mindset. And for us, if we have a quorum, basically if half the guys can be there, we're meeting no matter what. And we typically will have 8 or 9 guys there. I think most of the time there's 90% of the guys are there. So it's
Yeah.
I think the size of the group matters. I guess that's my point. If you're going to do this, you want to think about who, yes, but you want to think how many as well. And
Right.
that dynamic is really, I think once you get more than 10, that would feel unwieldy to me. I mean, I think it would be really hard to have the same dynamic that we have now if you had, 15 or 20 people. And yet you could do that, but it would change the dynamic greatly.
Well, it not only changed the dynamics, but very practically speaking, it changes the logistics, right? If you're going to meet in a home, which I actually love that.
Yeah, we love that.
It's a different vibe when you're in a home. And if somebody's preparing a meal, it's one thing to ask somebody to prepare a meal for 6 people. It's a whole nother thing to say, can you prepare a meal for 18 or 20? So there are reasons to keep it small. Again, you get to decide. And I know some groups that are thriving with 3 or 4, but they do from time to time have to cancel because 1 or 2 are out and then they don't have a group. So again, I like the little bit larger number too.
Yeah, that's good. I mentioned the charter. Will you talk a little bit next about our expectations? Because I think that's a very important part of the group.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you need to set clear expectations, and we don't have many, but one, as Randy already mentioned, is participation. Yeah, I mean, stuff happens, and we got that, but I mean, we literally, as I recall, Randy, we gave these to you in writing. I mean, there's 3 or 4 things you're agreeing to if you're going to join the group.
Yeah,
and one is participation. The other is preparation, because I actually believe the life change and the transformation that can result is as much to do with the preparation as it is the meeting. Because we'll talk in a minute about content, but we're going to ask you to prepare for our meeting. And that's when you're going to really grapple with the truth and the content and the application before we show up and then we talk about it. And so we're saying, if you can't participate, this isn't your kind of group. And if you can't devote some time to preparation, this is not going to be the group for you. So not many expectations, but we tried to be really clear and have conversations with people when we feel like one of our expectations is not being met.
I would also say, Mark, if you're going to do this, you need to meet regularly. And again, you'll get to decide what that is. Every week might be a lot, but we meet every other week, and we're busy guys. And, these guys in this group are leading some pretty big stuff, and they make it a priority. And our group meets 3 hours every other week, which sounds like that's a lot of time. We do a dinner on Monday nights, and that's really the first hour. And then we just kind of catch up for, I don't know, first 90 minutes is food and, catch up time. And we spend our last part of the evening talking about whatever it is we're studying. We'll talk about content here in a second, but that rhythm, that regular rhythm of every other week has just been so, I think it's been like glue for the group. Because if you want to do this every quarter, you could do it every quarter, I guess, if you chose to, but if somebody misses a meeting, then you don't see each other for 6 months. That doesn't feel like that works to me. So I like the idea of having the every other week. I mean, it's just been so great.
Yeah. The same is true if you say we're going to do it monthly. When somebody misses a month, that's a long time, but between meetings.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If you go every 2 weeks, we think you can move quite aggressively through the content. Because again, if you can only talk about content for an hour, you don't want to wait a month, because if you give people that much pre-work to do, then you don't have time to process it as a group. So for us, we kind of guessed almost 30 years ago that this was the right frequency. And I would argue it's been perfect.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And you talked there about work and pre-work and content. Will you talk? I think that's the next thing. Let's talk about the content a little bit. How that happens.
Yeah. And I would say just to be thoughtful about that. Now, that could be a blinding flash of the obvious. Of course, you're going to be thoughtful. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking really thoughtful. Again, we've established we're talking about leadership. And we historically had done book studies, but not exclusively. You've got to figure out how can you facilitate growth in each other in this format and in this forum. So let's take a book, Good to Great by Jim Collins. I mean, we've studied now 40 or 50 books over all these years, right? And it's going to be a really simple process. And this, we're going to talk in a minute about having a facilitator, but for the first 20 years, I did all the study questions, haven't for almost a decade now, but we now rotate that responsibility. But what I would do is, let's say we're going to work on Good to Great, by Jim Collins, which we've done, we've studied that. And I would look at the book and I would say, are there reasonable and natural chunks that we could expect people to read, to study, to reflect, and to do the pre-work in 2 weeks? Are there even breaks that make sense here? Now, here's what I would say. Sometimes there's section 1, section 2, section 3, and it works out fine. What we've discovered is somewhere between 50 and 75 pages is a good amount for our guys to process, and it allows us to move through the typical leadership book with some pace and some urgency. And we will send out anywhere, and it varies. As I mentioned, we now rotate the facilitation, and whoever's facilitating does the study questions, and different leaders have a different bias. We've got some leaders who are going to send you 4 questions on the 50 pages. You've got other people that are going to send you 30 questions on those pages. Now, remember, I said the real value is in the work that happens before the session. So we're not going to talk about 30 questions, but if you studied and processed those 30 questions, you got real value out of that before we come together. Oh, and by the way, if somebody sends out only 4 questions, we still may not talk about all 4 of those questions.
That's right.
Based on where the conversation goes and where we sense the energy and the value. But my personal bias is 6 to 8 questions, maybe 10, but probably 6 to 8 for a 50-page section of a book. And then we come together and we try to figure out what's this mean for us? What can we do with this content? What do we believe? What do we challenge? Do we have examples and illustrations from our past when these things were true? What challenges and barriers and obstacles do you anticipate if you were going to try to do some of the things that we've talked about tonight? So that's kind of the way the content works, but be very thoughtful. But one last thing on being thoughtful is, we've done this more than once over the years. I would actually survey the guys and say, is there a specific area of leadership, a domain or a struggle or an obstacle that you're feeling is impeding your effectiveness? And just survey the guys. And I literally have made them do this on 3x5 cards and turn them in. And then we'll start looking for themes and looking for patterns. And so often the group has spoken into the content.
Speaking of that, we both mentioned last week the book that we read. We said we'd read a book called Younger Next Year. Well, that was actually read in this group. And we had a group of guys. We got a group of guys that are getting older, and we're thinking about this fitness thing. And that book helped us focus our thinking and was really great. So I'll give a couple more thoughts here about the meeting.
But let me say one thing about what you just said. I think that's a great illustration, and I missed that. We're studying leadership. You're saying, but why are you studying Younger Next Year?
Yeah.
We've taken a broad view. What's going to help you be a better leader?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
good.
one thing is that if you've got enough energy. We did another book 20 years ago that was fantastic called The Power of Full Engagement. Well, is that a leadership book? I don't know if it's a leadership book or not, but it helped leaders. And so we're saying broadly, it just isn't everything by Pat Lencioni and Jim Collins, although we've done some of that. It's what would help you be a better leader. And we've taken a pretty broad sweep of what's available in the world.
Well, I like where you started with just choose your content thoughtfully, and you get to decide, which is cool. I'll say a couple things here about the meeting too. This really was in the charter, but just I would say focus on the preparation. And there's two sides. One, the piece in the charter was we're going to assign you 2 to 3 chapters. You got to read this if you're going to come and participate. I mean, you want to. This is not optional. Like we're gonna come and we're gonna have a good discussion on this. But I think the more time I put into it, the more I think about it. The questions, you mentioned the questions, they're typically sent out a few days before. So I've got time to think through those and they'll help me kind of as I'm reading to know, like, what am I looking for here and what are the dots I can connect. And so that preparation really has been an important part. And then the other thing that I'll just kind of dovetail as far as the meeting goes, it's fun to get in a debate about the content. I mean, that's great, but that's really not what we do so much. I mean, Mark, we focus mostly on application. We're real big on, like, what do we need to do based on what we're reading? And there'll be things that we'll read sometimes that'll, I got a book I'm reading right now. It's just got me on tilt. I'm thinking this is a totally different way of thinking about things than I ever have before, but I'm still looking for what do I do with this? What is the action that I can take? And I think if you're going to start a group, the idea of focusing on application can be really catalytic to help your group members get better, as they apply what they're learning. We say you practice your way to high performance. And I think this is a great, opportunity to do that in that group.
Yeah. This is not a group built to teach people the theory of leadership. I mean, you may learn some theory, but it is about the practice of leadership. And I would say that is a pro tip all in and by itself, is no matter what you're studying, because what we've learned over the years is that some books will be more application oriented, or some will even spell out application ideas, and others equally valuable will talk about principles, we'll talk about concepts, we'll talk about theory. Well, and that's good, but it's only good for us if we then talk about how do you apply it. And some of the books that have had a huge impact on me were books that didn't have a lot of practical application baked in. The author chose not to go there, but then that's what we focused on.
Yeah.
And the more we focus on application, I would argue the better leaders we become.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned the facilitator. We'll say more about that in the PDF, but I do want us, before we go here, to talk about another aspect of this. The leadership learning has been great, but the community aspect of it, Mark, the support from your peers, the challenge, even, there's like, how many times have guys called me out on something, or you can do this, or I'm cheering for you, I'm praying for you, whatever. I mean, all that kind of stuff is a benefit of this thing that I'm guessing you probably assumed it would be on the front side, but now looking back nearly, 30 years, you could never have dreamed that it would be, I think, or at least for me, what it has become. It's like, these are in a lot of ways like your brothers. And so that part of it has been really pretty amazing. And so don't underestimate just the power of that. I think we are better. You said earlier, we are better together. And that togetherness has been it's been a big part of it for me.
Yeah. And we talk about this, interesting enough, in another context when we're discussing, is I did this last week with a group out in Utah, how to build high performance teams. We tell them the turbocharger on a team is this idea of genuine community, a place where people know deeply, serve willingly, and do life together. Well, interesting, that works in a high-performance team, but it also turbocharges a leadership development group, because over time, you know each other deeply, you constantly find opportunities to serve one another because you're doing life together. and you show up at the events, at the weddings and the funerals and the celebrations.
I was going to say, right before I got in the group, one of the members of the group, was in a bad accident and ended up being in a hospital. I don't know, a couple of weeks. I mean, like in ICU kind of deal. It was really bad. And I remember hearing a couple of guys telling me that there was never I don't think there was a moment over those 2 weeks that one of those 9 guys wasn't by his bedside. And that said a lot to me about what you're stepping into here. I mean, it was, the guy who was recovered and was doing better. He's the one who told me, is like, just knowing those guys were there meant so much. And then I remember, after I hadn't joined long, I'd been in there maybe a year. We actually had a member of the group passed away. And I just remember us all being there for that guy and his family, and just watching that part of it. It's, I don't know, man, that's powerful to know that you got some people that you can lean on when things are not so good, and to celebrate when things are good. So that to me that's a big part of it. I didn't want to miss that before we left today.
Yeah. I think you can nurture that, and you can celebrate that process, and you can build that in. We talk, when we talk to folks about teams, you can build community if you're intentional, and if you're thoughtful, and if you're strategic, and these events, these sessions do that. You're having a meal together. Maybe you're sharing prayer requests. You're celebrating together. You're mourning together. Well, those are the things you do to build community. So, it makes the learning even sweeter.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, if you can have community focused on getting better as leaders, I mean, to me, that's a really great combo. It's been, as I said, it's been fantastic for me. So, you start one of these groups, we'll give you your money back for today. If you don't get better, it'll be great for you. If you could use some strategic help on that, again, check the show notes. We've got the PDF there that'll describe what we've talked about. And we'd love to hear from you. If you start a group and you get one going, reach out to us, let us know. We love those stories. Those are fantastic. We love you guys. I hope you'll join us next week. And remember, the best leaders lead every day.